The arrogant Superman is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Don't act like a big shot, Tip. You just got the
You have your fear, which might become reality. You have control, which is reality.
It looks innocent as a gigantic egg, but its unseen powers are so great that its worshippers beg the thing's indulgence in self-abasing ceremonies.
And welcome back to the Sludge Cast. This is another episode of the monster movie Stompdown. Sludge here. I'm also joined with
Mark Reagan
and our fellow Texan
Ruben down in right now a wintry Corpus Christi, Texas, where it's 58 degrees outside.
Yeah, see, he says wintry Corpus Christi at 58 degrees.
33 in Bristol right now.
Yeah.
33.
Yeah.
It's a little chilly here. It's been a pretty good winter so far. I mean, the last several days up here in Bristol, Tennessee, it's usually really cold, in the 30s, 20s, but it's been in like the 50s and low 60s for about the past week. So somebody put a meme out the other day. I sent it to my wife, and it was the groundhog the groundhog said 6 more weeks of winter. Then said, except you, Tennessee, your weather does whatever it wants because it just gets insane here. But Texas
is one of those. It'll switch on you. It was in the 70s yesterday, and then a front came through, so now it's supposed to be down at for us down here, winter is. If it's in the 50s, it's cold enough. We're way down here.
That's not even right.
If it's in the 50s here,
well,
I'm
so
like,
funny. My boy was up there in Indianapolis for the SEAT conference.
Yeah, that's and Sarah read an article about that. She goes, "This is so cool." I said, "Ruben's son was there," so she thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then he came back to San Antonio, that's where he goes to school, and he goes, "Oh, it's so hot down here." It was 75, and it was just uncomfortable for him after a week in Indianapolis.
So all of our listeners, just so y'all know, Ruben gets the good weather. We get stuck with a cold. So, anyways, we're back with the next monster movie Stompdown, and we're jumping to another Godzilla film, and this one is the fourth in the entry. This one it's a great film. I cannot wait to talk about this movie. It's Mothra versus Godzilla, the 1964 version. Right up after King Kong vs. Godzilla. I love this film, and I'm really excited to talk about it. It was interesting. We were talking before we started recording that the new animated film just dropped on Netflix today as we record this. And I can't watch it till February 1st because I'm on a fast, and I'm fasting TV and movie entertainment. And my wife was even like, "Well, don't you have to watch this movie before you go review it?" And I'm like, "Not this one. I've seen this one. It's one of those ones like 1985 where it'll be playing and we'll be in the house and I'll be like quoting or like saying the lines before they actually happen." And Sarah's like, "This movie word for word?" I'm like, "Oh yes, I've seen this one." I didn't have to watch it. I know this one back to back like my hands or something. So I'm stoked about it. Mark, you watched it, really right before you came here?
Literally, just right before I came
That
here.
wasn't your first time watching it,
No,
obviously.
it's been years ago I watched it, but loved it. Always enjoyed this movie. And was liked the fact that it's tried to get back to the original. I'm definitely a fan of Godzilla, but I thought Mothra was when I originally saw it was the first time seeing Mothra and became a big Mothra fan.
Are you talking about this one or the 61 Mothra film?
The 64 was actually the first time I saw Mothra.
Oh, this one, okay.
Yeah. And so that was the first for me being introduced to Mothra. So became a Mothra fan out of it, and it was pretty good. I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, Mothra is definitely. I mean, Mothra's one of the big four, you know, for Toho.
Oh yeah,
huge for them. Of course, now for those listening who haven't seen the first Mothra film, it came out three years prior to this movie.
And I still haven't seen that one.
You still haven't seen that? Oh man, that is a beautiful film.
Yeah.
It's definitely Ruben. Would you call it one of the more fantasy type films that Toho put out, right?
Yeah,
because it's not real.
Definitely.
Monster doom and gloom, you know what I mean? There's plenty of city destruction, but it's way more of a fantasy film. But it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. I love the first Mothra. I mean, it's one of the best. I mean, when you look back at the big four, especially, you know, Godzilla, Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra, Rodan and Mothra's first outings were just phenomenal movies. So, I mean, you see Rodan,
right.
But Mothra was...
Rodan's one of my favorite. I mean, Rodan is Mothra was well done, but Rodan was so well... Toho was just hitting home runs at the time.
Oh yeah,
one after the other. Yeah,
they were all phenomenal.
And this one, yeah, and even with this one, they didn't. You know, Mothra was made, and they just kind of picked up. It all intertwines together. Even though this was a Godzilla movie, even though Mothra gets first billing on this one, not Godzilla, I believe. Right? It's Mothra versus Godzilla. Yeah,
on this one.
Oh, versus and then I know they changed it for the American title, but I believe, Mothra versus Godzilla was what it was over there, and so Mothra got first billing on this one,
which I thought was really cool.
Considered a Godzilla movie
because it can really, and we'll get into this in more depth here in a minute, but it really kind of filled as a sequel, almost a direct sequel to not just Godzilla vs. King Kong, from where it picks up, but to Mothra as well.
Exactly.
Because of how they tie in. So it's great film. Those who haven't watched it definitely need to watch this. But let's jump into it real quick. Let's talk about this movie. And of course, I'll do a little run through on this one. This one, by the way, looked it up. Actually got a 90% on the Rotten Tomato score meter, which is really, really good. Anything 90 and above is just stellar if it's on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. This one actually came out, of course, in 1964, came out in April 29th, 1964, hit the United States in November of that year. So it came over pretty quick because it was huge in Japan. Ended up making 2.5 million, something like that, yen over there. So it was a big blockbuster hit for them. This movie, and I'll just kind of run through it real quick for those who haven't seen it yet and are going to go watch it. Pretty much it comes after King Kong vs. Godzilla and involves Mothra. Mothra's egg, which is kind of weird, caterpillar birth from an egg, but it's a giant monster or whatever, is washed on shore in Japan in this movie after a huge hurricane comes through. And it leads some of our characters, and we'll talk about the characters in a minute, into this whole story. Mothra's eggs are there, and there's a company that's trying to exploit the egg and make money off of it. All the while, what ends up happening is Mothra and the fairies, or the Shobijin, are trying to get the egg back, and then Godzilla shows up, and then everything just breaks loose at that point. You've got some main characters I do want to mention too on this one that we've got, because you got some really, really big actors. The main characters, of course, you've got Sakai the reporter, who is played by none other than the great Akira Takarada, who's been in so many Godzilla films. He's probably the biggest name for any Godzilla actor. Even though there's been other actors that's played more films than him, he's the biggest actor.
Yeah, this film actually had a lot of familiar faces, more than any other one that I can remember.
Oh, a ton.
As far as the Godzilla, yeah. I mean, I would say at least 6 characters played in other Godzilla movies. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you get Takarada as Sakai. Hiroshi Koizumi, who's Professor Miura in this one. He's also in Mothra. He's in Ghidorah 3-Headed Monster. He's in so many Godzilla movies.
I know. Course, it is. Yeah.
He's so big. Then you've got Yoshifumi Tajima. He plays Kumiyama, which when we get to talk about this, he's probably my favorite character in the film. I love Kumiyama. I love that actor. He's great. But he's been in other films. He's in, Ruben's favorite, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. He was in, the H-Man. Exactly. He was in a lot. He was in Mothra, the original Mothra. He's been in several tokusatsu and kaiju films. And then, of course, you've got the great Kenji Sahara. He plays Torahata in the film, the main bad guy for Happy Enterprises. Tons of great faces and actors in this one. And one thing I love about the movie is really the level of acting. I feel like this has some of the best acting of any movie. So let's go ahead and run through this, and I'll kind of give what I like, don't like, and we'll move along like we normally do. But so, great movie, egg washes on shore. I love how when Godzilla shows up in this movie is probably one of my favorite appearances of Godzilla ever.
Yeah.
As we leave.
Definitely.
King Kong versus Godzilla. Godzilla's, they go over the cliff. Godzilla's in the water, not to be seen. Kong goes off to his island. Hurricane comes knocking on Japan's door right there, and Godzilla presumably gets buried in the ground or by tons of sand from the hurricane, and that's where he comes from. Is that scene where they're washing all the stuff away and getting all the debris away, and they finally got it cleared. And then Yoka, the Sakai's photographer, yeah, she's trying to take a picture of the area for their paper, and she's like, "Oh, I can't get a picture because the ground's moving." And then all of a sudden that tail comes out and Godzilla comes out. And I'm just like, I remember as a kid going, "Holy crap, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen." Such a good appearance, actually, that SH Monster Arts they have two versions of this figure, the regular version and then a recolored version to match the dirt look for just him coming out of the water. And that's the most sought after one because it's that awesome of an appearance. So when he shows up, man, it's awesome. I think Toho really knocked it out of the park for this one. For me, it's really hard to beat. For me personally, it's hard to choose a better post Godzilla, post the first one, a better film of the Showa era, period. Like, as far as not having flaws, because there's a lot of great ones. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, Monster Zero, which I think is actually better than Ghidorah. Godzilla versus Megagodzilla. To me, honestly, and as we go through, we'll talk about it. Godzilla vs. Megagodzilla is probably the next best one to this. This one, they just absolutely killed it, I think, from top to finish, or from start to bottom, begin to end. Everything was awesome. Godzilla was, it's not as comedic as King Kong versus Godzilla. Godzilla, to me, in this film was a lot more menacing than he was, because he was just on a path of destruction, period. And then by the time he gets the egg, he wants after lunch. When Mothra shows up, that's one of the greatest fights. To me, I think the Godzilla and Mothra fight, especially in this film, with the adult Mothra, I mean, even the one with the larva, the two larvae is great, but the fight with the adult Mothra was stellar. You don't get, there's not, to me, another fight with an aerial monster of Godzilla that's that intense the rest of the Showa series. Like, with Ghidra, there's really not a ton of aerial fights. It's more grounded with him. Yeah. But as far as any aerial fights, none of them compared to the fight between Mothra and Godzilla in this. The actors were phenomenal. They're so good. Of course, you got the best actors of Toho all compiled into this one film, and they're just great. It's a great story, great actors. You can really relate to them, and they make themselves very believable. The special effects through the roof, some of the best of the Showa era. Even the mistakes. One thing, the mistake that was made with this film that was actually kept was when he comes up on that castle in Osaka, I think is where he's at. He actually tripped. He fell. And that scene, he just played with it. He just ran with it. So when he falls into the castle, he just tore it apart because, they can't afford to rebuild it, So that was an accident, and he saved it. I mean, Haruo Nakajima did a great job as Godzilla in this film. This is one of the films too, just all around, to me, it's really hard to find something I didn't like. In this film, the special effects were top notch. Actually, this was the one we've talked about before. I don't know if on the show, but but I know Ruben, me and you've talked about it, and Mark, we've talked about it, where they were testing new rockets to use for the special effects. And I think it was Tomoyuki Tanaka was talking to Haruo Nakajima and was like, let's see these things work. And they were firing them at 3/4 inch plywood, and they were blowing holes in the plywood. And he looks at Haruo going, "And they're shooting these at you in a vinyl suit?" And he's like, "I guess so." It's like, man, the dude was dedicated to his job. Everything in this was great. I mean, even the American actors in the beach scene where they fire those frontier missiles at him, the American actors were better than the American actors in Kong and Godzilla. This movie was just stellar. To me, one of my favorite roles was Kenji Sahara as Torahata. He was just a despicable billionaire. I mean, you really saw him as this financial guru who just didn't care about anybody but himself and his money, and he did a great job. Everybody did great. I mean, Akira Takarada just killed it as Sockeye. He's such a good actor, anyways. But to me, Yoshifumi, the guy plays Kumiyama, is awesome. Like, I love him in any movie he does. He was great in The H-Man. He was a detective in that movie, and that's one of my favorite tokusatsu films because it was very much a horror film. But he's great in all films. He was great in Mothra. But man, he as Kumiyama, he's awesome. Like that scene when you first meet him on the beach, and they're at the egg, and Sakai's there, and you meet Professor Mirai, who's played by Hiroshi Koizumi, and he talks to Yoka about taking his picture. And then she goes, okay, goes takes a picture, and he blows that smoke from the cigar in her face, and he's like, oh, that should be a great picture. Huh? At that point, I knew, I'm like, I love this man. Like, this actor is great. He was so poignant, and just he was great as that character. He was awesome because
he was a perfect corporate. Yeah, he's
man, so good. There was not really anything I didn't like about this film. I mean, I loved every bit of it. The action was great. I mean, you get everything you wanted from Godzilla in this film, from the amazing appearance to 2 different monster battles. With the Mothra adult and the Mothra larva, that was just both were stellar battles. Perfectly choreographed, and then you get to see him fight plenty of army, machines, tanks, and the frontier missiles with the Americans, and all of them were nailed perfectly. The puppetry work was great. I loved it. This movie was, to me, it's hard to beat, and this is one of the only 2 Godzilla films that I actually am okay with watching in English, and even recommend some people sometimes watch it in English.
You did that to me.
Yeah, because the translation, the original dubbing was spot on. It was so good. It looked, most of the time, it looked like they were actually speaking those English lines. They did so well with the dubbing on this one. And the movie, the American version between the Japanese version, there's not much difference. There's less than a minute in time frame, and I think they cut that in just minor editing. Now there was a huge change.
They added that minute. They just added the minute to you. So really, what you're getting in the American version is an extra minute, and it's just where the U.S. gets involved, the United States gets involved with their new missiles.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, it's the exact same movie.
Yeah, that's the only difference. Yeah. And I think it enhanced it too. And of course, now when they brought it over here, it was probably honestly one of the dumbest promotional reels ever, because they changed the name to Godzilla versus the Thing. And you see the egg, and you see Mothra, and they're always like, "What is the Thing?" Like, the big Mothra? Like, are you trying to hide? Because they didn't even try hiding her. It's like she was in all the trailers, but it's like, what is the Thing? Like, it's clearly Mothra. We saw this movie 3 years ago, and so terrible part on the American production, bringing it over here and trying to change the name, and I don't know what they were going for, but still a phenomenal movie. One thing I do want to add before we move on to one of you guys about what you like and didn't like about the film is this was the first Godzilla film to bring in somebody very key and special to the series, and that was he was the assistant director to Eiji Tsuburaya for special effects, and that's Terayushi Nakano. Terayushi Nakano is who would eventually take over for Eiji when he leaves. And of course, he ended up passing away to taking over the special effects. And there are a lot of things as we get into the films where Terayushi is the director of special effects when he takes over that I will point out, because there were some things that he created that I think are very noteworthy for the special effects for the tokusatsu genre. So I did want to note that real quick, that this was his first time coming in working with Eiji on a Godzilla film as an assistant director. So he pretty much, from my understanding, did a lot of the B shots for the special effects as well, that he kind of just handled them on his own. So Eiji put a lot of trust in him. So wanted to note that. But so in saying that, again, there's nothing I didn't love about this movie. The suit is great. It's one of my favorite suits of the Showa series. Everything about it is just awesome. I can't think of a flaw in this movie where I was like, I wish they wouldn't have done that. I just couldn't find a flaw in this film. And I can find a flaw in most things. But this one, no real flaw whatsoever. Ruben, what about you, man? What did you think of it?
Well, it's basically one of the best reviews of the Showa area, but for a reason. It's a good movie. it has all the elements that I look for. So I know we've talked in other ones, like if you were going to introduce a kid to Godzilla, I would pick Godzilla versus Megalon. But if I was going to introduce somebody, just an adult to the Showa era Godzilla, I think I would pick this film because it's got a little bit of everything. It's got the soundtrack. It's got the special effects, the classic special effects that Toho just is good at. It's got good characters in it. It's even got, some comic relief in it, here and there. Well, what's his name with the egg? He's always eating an egg, it seems like, during the whole movie. And he's always,
right.
it's always it's kind of funny because he's always in the middle of something and he's got that egg in his hand. He's eating a boiled egg.
I'm trying to eat my egg.
So I think if I was, somebody says, "Hey, I want to watch a Godzilla film. Where should I start?" Besides the first one, of course, the first one. But when it comes to Showa era, which I don't think the original one is considered Showa.
I don't consider it Showa.
It's made in '54.
Which I think
I don't consider it. Yeah.
I think with it, I mean, and I don't mean to interrupt you here, but as far as in Japan for the ruling at the time, they were in the Showa era still. But as far as the films, I don't know anybody that really considers that or Godzilla Raids again part of the Showa. When we talk about Showa,
part of Showa, yeah. To me, the Showa era started with King Kong.
Yeah,
Godzilla or King Kong. Yeah, and so that's why I'm just making that disclaimer in case somebody says, "Hey, that is Showa era." But
gotcha.
I like the costume design. It's classic. It's a fan favorite, So I think after watching this, I said, you know what, this thing, it's got a lot of classic characters in it. A lot of sitting there watching it. I was 11 years old again watching it. I'm like, man, this has everything I ever loved about the Showa Godzilla. And the movies is just great. Even it's got the twins in it, and it's got just everything. I really can't think of anything I didn't like about it. I didn't like the villains, but you're not supposed to like the villains. They did such a great job. I just didn't like them. It was just great. I'm like, man, they did such a good job with this because I really dislike them. I really dislike them a lot. And then when without giving to even when they're trying to get away from the Godzilla attacking and a beam falls on them, I'm so happy. I'm like, hey, that guy got what he deserved, kind of deal.
Oh yeah.
So when you got a villain who's doing this and then something happens to him, you're not supposed to. I mean, I guess I wasn't happy, but it was like, hey, he got what he deserved. So this movie is just. As far as Godzilla and Showa goes, it's not my favorite Showa, but it's a good one. I mean, favorite versus what's the best one is two different things in my book.
Yeah,
I agree. So yeah, I mean, this is it's the best one, but it's not my favorite. But that doesn't mean I don't think of this one highly. And like I said, it's just got everything that I would want to introduce someone to Showa. This would be the one I think I would show them. Then I'll show them my favorite one, but first this one, just to get them to get an idea of what because this I don't know the feel of the movie. I guess is very Toho and very classic to the way Toho does things incorrectly. So I'm like you. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I didn't like. Special effects were good. They're not as good as I've seen in other movies, but that's what makes the Showa era so good. Is some of the special effects aren't that great. They're kind of campy, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. How about you, Mark?
Well, I totally enjoyed it. I mean, I really liked it, especially coming because I was disappointed with the King Kong Godzilla movie. If you don't remember me talking about it last time, and so to me that was a letdown. And then for this movie, like I say, it's first time seeing Mothra. Was excited, liked it, enjoyed it, and just like Ruben said, when I watched it again tonight, it did take me back a ways to my younger years, I'd say, and I thought it was really good. the acting was tremendous, and it kept you really in the movie without the monsters. You know, and I thought that was really good and entertaining. But with the fight scenes were tremendous. Wanted a little more out of Godzilla. I think when he's fighting the larvas, I think, you know, and like we were talking earlier, Ruben, you know, it was a quick paced movie, you know, and I thought maybe a little bit more fight scene out of that. To me, just a little bit more, but overall, great movie. Didn't have the cheesy comic like it had in the King Kong movie.
Real cheesy feel on that.
And so I thought it was just enough comical put in there, however you want to say it, and to make it good. But like I say, the acting was great, kept it going, and really pleased with it and enjoyed it. It had been a while since I've watched it, and so me and my granddaughter watched it, and she fell asleep about halfway through, but she loved it, stayed entertained with it, and so I was happy with it overall.
It's really, really good. This is one of the films too. It's not the first one we've got with it this way, but it's something I wanted to point out in this one. So, I mean, we all three have just, you know, completely agreed. It is the best of the Showa, the color Showa films or whatever. I mean, it's just almost impossible to top this because you can find flaws in the other ones. Now we've got our favorites of the Showa. You know, I mean, like Ruben's Monster Zero, and mine would probably honestly go to Mechagodzilla. I mean, I absolutely love that film.
Yeah, that's a very close second for me.
Man, it's so good. There was something about that's the time when Jun Fukuda had taken over directing. There's something about Jun's style that I just loved. Loved his style a lot. But for this one, well, Mark, what's your favorite of the Showa?
The Showa. This could be possibly it right here. I mean, like I say, with Mothra, being introduced to Mothra, and getting back to where closer to the original 54, I think. With this movie, I think it could be this one. It is this one.
It's so good. I mean, it is the best. This one's. I mean, you know, if we're going, you know, like favorites of the Showa, I mean, this would be my second. The only reason why it would be my second instead of Ghidorah is because there's a couple scenes in Ghidorah, and we'll get to that as we, you know, in 2 months. There's a couple scenes in Ghidorah where I really didn't like, where I was like, we could have done without that. If it wasn't for those two key scenes that we'll talk about when we get to that movie, that would be my favorite next to Mechagodzilla. But definitely this one is my second favorite because it's just. Oh man, yeah, we got on the TV, and Mark points out Godzilla's coming out. It's that scene. For those listening, as we do the shows, me and Mark are in one location. We're in my house, and Ruben, of course, is in Texas, and we've got a Plex server. So we make sure whatever movie we talk about, it's playing in the background, and I can see it in Mark's glasses now. Godzilla just showing up, so it's the best scene ever. So, but something I wanted to touch on this one was one of the films that had what was known, not the monsters, but as far as the cast, the Toho's Big Four. That being Ishiro Honda, who was always in the director chair, Tomiyuki Tanaka, who produced, Akira Fukube, who did the music, and then Naiji Tsuburaya, who did the special effects. Something I want to note here that I wanted to talk about because we got to this film, and I was thinking about this. Man, honestly, I was thinking about this back in like the first Godzilla film because I'm so excited about this person because of the movies he did do for Toho. His first movie was a movie called Battle in Outer Space. That is a phenomenal sci-fi space action movie. It's so good. But he actually is also the guy who wrote Mothra, and then he wrote this. And his name is he's wrote several. Is Shinichi Sekizawa, and Shinichi Sekizawa, he wrote to me some of the best of the Showa. He wrote Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster, Son of Godzilla. He wrote Godzilla's Revenge, so we'll forgive him for that. Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla vs. Megalon, and which I think I've noted him not. That was a troublesome movie, anyways. But he also wrote Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. So he wrote some of the absolute. Well, he wrote the absolute best of the Showa, and then some of the better ones of the Showa. He, to me, when he came in, I don't think it's fair to say there was the big four. without including Shinichi, because I think he's part of that. I think it should be the big five, because if it wasn't for his writing and the stories he came up with, there would be nothing for Inashiro to direct, or Tomiyuki to produce, or Kira to write, music for, and Aisha to do the special effects for. I think Shinichi had a real talent for writing tokusatsu films, and that became very clear. If you guys have not seen Battle in Outer Space, you got to. It's so good. I know everyone raves about The Mysterians, which is a great movie. Doesn't compare to Battle in Outer Space. Battle in Outer Space came out in 1958 and was superb. But of course, he also did Astragon, which is a great movie in itself. That movie is super stellar. But I think it's worth mentioning him because he wrote these movies so well. And I love the way he did it. I love the way he wrote Ghidorah, especially. Monster Zero, he did great. Every movie he's written for Toho, aside from Godzilla's Revenge, which we get forgiven for, because they were at a rough spot back then, was huge in making these movies what they were. So I definitely want to talk about that, because I think a movie is only as good as the story is anyways, and definitely. And he, to me, was key, especially in this movie is, obviously, because we've agreed it's the best of the Showa, this is where he shined the most, because I really think the story in this movie was, everything. The human characters, like Mark said, they keep you going when there's no monsters on screen. He intertwined the human characters so well with the monsters that I think that in this one especially, because even in his later films he did a great job, but in this one the interaction for the human characters and the monsters was flawless, as far as why they're there where Godzilla's at, or why they're there where Mothra's at, intertwining it all together, because, Sakai and Yoka and Professor Mura, they get entangled in this thing with the egg because they're the ones who talk to the Shobijin, which is the Ito sisters, by the way. We forgot to say that. Same girls. Yeah. They were a pop band, twin singers, and they were phenomenal actresses. They played the Shobijin in Mothra, but they returned for this one. They come to our main characters to try and get them to help them get the egg back to their island. And of course they can't because of Happy Enterprises and Torahata and Kumiyama. And so that he did a great job writing that together to where it gives you a reason why these characters that we like are front and center in the action. So when Godzilla shows up to destroy the egg, Mothra shows up to defend and to fight Godzilla, and they're there seeing all of it because they're there trying to get this egg back, and they're all intertwined in it. Every bit, even to the island. Godzilla leaves and the Larvago fights him. They still made it to the island because there happen to be kids there. He just simple things. He did so good at intertwining the human characters that I think that gets lost in a lot of monster films, period. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen it so good until the Gamera trilogy again in the 90s. Kind of like Gareth Edwards' Godzilla in 2014, which is just, we all love that movie. But I think that's one of the things it struggled with was intertwining those human characters with the monsters on screen. That I think and hope Michael Dougherty, who's talked a lot about what movies he likes and what he's bringing to this next film, is going to be phenomenal from everything it seems to be. I really kind of hope he went back and looked at how Shinichi did this, because I don't think there's been any man on the planet that's brought monsters and humans together in a better blended way than Shinichi. And that's my spiel about him.
Yes, excellent.
So, Ruben, what do you think about it?
Agreed. Agreed. There are some films in the show era that are fun to watch. There was no story, so there's always something missing. And in this one, first of all, the story is of a serious nature. I mentioned the comic relief in there, but there's very little of it, and it doesn't really affect the story or diminish it. And so the way this is written, it's serious. First of all, Godzilla is a villain, which is, how he started off. And he still hasn't turned into the kid-friendly Godzilla yet. He's still a menacing creature who's just going to, run through everything. So the story's so well written that, how can I put this? You want to know everything that's going on. You just don't need to see the fights. The monster fight scenes. Yes, it's a Godzilla movie, but but you're invested. Like you see Happy Enterprises taking over, and they buy the egg, and you just like them. You just like, they're the bad guy, and the actors, of course, do a great job. But the writing is what really made it. The actors took that and turned it into something, great. But without that writing, and that's missing in other Showa movies, of that era. They're just not as good. You can see the effort's not there.
Yeah.
And in this one, you can see, just like you mentioned Michael Dougherty. You can, from everything I'm hearing from this coming film, he's actually a fan. So I'm hopeful that we get the result that we get out of this type of writing. In other words, we get a result like this movie, which all indications is that we are. Hopefully we won't be disappointed. I don't think we will, but that's what makes this movie so good, is the writing, the story. It's just, that's why really I just mentioned earlier that I think I would have somebody who never watched a Godzilla film to watch this one, because it's not silly. It's got a serious storyline. It's just a perfect story, especially when you compare it to other Showa movies.
Yeah, definitely is. I think the soundtrack also. There's not.
Oh yeah.
There's not too many Godzilla films. Yeah, I mean, there's the Godzilla March that Kira Fukube came up with. That we first heard in Kong versus Godzilla. At least the beginning writings of it. That there's not tons of times where you sit down and watch a Godzilla or a monster movie and you kind of go, man, the soundtrack was just awesome. Did you hear that? It's good, but for this one, I really feel like he nailed it. What really makes me think about it is when the Mothra, doll Mothra, ends up dying as Godzilla walks off, and after the fight with Godzilla, and she lands on the egg, and the Shobijin and Sakai are all there, and they're talking about the egg can hatch today to try and stop Godzilla, and they start singing that song. That whole soundtrack piece with the special effects soundtracks that was going on as that egg was hatching, I can never forget. Like, when I think about this film, even though, like you guys got to watch it, I didn't watch it, that sticks out to me. I remember as a kid, it stuck out to me because Akira Fukube he nailed it. That musical score with the song that he wrote for Mothra, and then the sound effects crew that put the sound effects in there. That was one of the best moments of Godzilla period, I think, was just that. I was hyped to see this egg hatch. I already saw it hatch in Mothra. I'm going to see two, caterpillars come walking out. I shouldn't be pumping for caterpillars coming out of an egg. It makes no sense. But I was jonesing at this point for them to come out whenever I watched this film, because they did a really good job. And I thought that was something else to mention too. This probably has one of the best soundtracks and musical scores of any of the films. Yeah,
and it's become so. You hear any of these tracks, automatic. It's Godzilla. Automatic. Hey, man, it's just, that's another thing I noticed when I was watching the movie. So this soundtrack is so good. They just, and I know the Godzilla, but it's just, I don't know. There's just something about this movie and this soundtrack, the story and all that coming all together. It just makes the near perfect Godzilla movie, if not perfect Godzilla movie.
I want to interrupt you just one second, just because of the TV that's on in the background. Are they trying to make that look like a King Kong head right there? You see what I'm saying in the background?
Where next to the turtle? What's behind him?
In the back, see him in the top. Yeah.
Oh, I never noticed that.
When I saw that, the first thing I saw, I thought, well, they're trying to put King Kong in there.
Ruben, the scene where they go to Infant Island for the first
island.
time.
Yeah, and the skeletons are all there.
Okay, so there's a rock formation behind them, behind the turtle skeleton, which, if you ever notice, the head moves, which I never really figured out why.
Yeah,
just randomly moves. There's one of those rock formations does look like the main mountain from Skull Island.
Exactly.
Or Kong's Island, because it looks like King Kong.
Yes.
I don't know. That's a good... I might research about that.
I saw that and I thought, that really looks like King Kong right there.
Yeah, so for those listening, when you go back and watch this movie, when they go to the island, you're going to see the turtle with the moving head randomly, but there's a rock formation behind them that looks just like Kong, just like the mountain from Skull Island.
Right,
that was pretty cool.
So sorry about that.
I have it on right now. I'm watching the Japanese version right now. I have it on while we're recording this, only because the Japanese version is so much cleaner than the American in my copy anyway, my DVD. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
Really cool.
So
yeah.
We're right on.
But I just put it on. Godzilla's about to shoot out from the dirt right now.
Man, that's such a good scene. Like I'm telling you, guys listening, if you haven't seen this movie, just watch it just for Godzilla's appearance. It is, man, it's the best. It is the best appearance of it. The only one I can think of that's remotely close to this is, again, because one of my favorites is 85. When he's walking and then the ground cracks and that guy falls and it's the pan up or the camera moves up for his feet up to his, dude, I was just like, what? That's definitely one of the best. I can't think of two better first time appearances of him, but this one is so good. Any other comments you guys want to make about the movie?
Great movie. Loved it, enjoyed it, and probably be watching it a few more times in my lifetime.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Ruben?
It's like I would say right now, man, I'm just such a Ghidorah fan, or Ghidra, depending on which era you're watching, that I always put those ahead. But after watching this, and I've seen it before, I've maybe seen it, maybe counting this time, maybe 7-8 times. It's really good. I want to rank it now in my top 5. It's going to have to bump one of my top 5 because it was really that good. But yeah, man, this is a great movie. I recommend it to anybody who wants to maybe never seen Godzilla and is curious now. Of course, they're listening. Most of the people listening to our show probably have seen Godzilla, but if they haven't seen anything in the show era, I know there's a lot of younger people that, this movie doesn't come out on TV a lot. So
Not
unless
anymore,
you go out and purchase
unfortunately.
it. Yeah. It used to be when I was a kid, it was on TV all the time. So I would, if you want to get into a good Showa movie, I'd recommend this one. Like I said, the costume design alone and his first appearance is awesome.
Yeah, even
Mothra's
watching
design
it
now is awesome.
so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Mothra's first appearance. Yeah, exactly. It's just great, and I think it's a good primer to get ready for the big event here later on this year.
Oh man, you know what I'm stoked about?
Yeah.
And I kind of wish I wish there was a way to time it a little bit better. Next month we're not doing a Godzilla film, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But March we will be doing Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and I kind of wish we were doing that in May. Because Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster's got Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah. Godzilla King of the Monsters was coming out in May. All 4 of them. I mean, you're pretty much getting a new edition of that film, so it would be pretty sweet to do that. But I want to keep things in order, so we got to. But we'll be discussing the how closely those two will line up, I think. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Ruben, too. I mean, if you've not watched a Godzilla film or maybe not even seen a Showa film, this is the go-to film to watch. I mean, definitely to introduce you to Godzilla films, because you get everything. Yeah. You get the best of everything of a Godzilla film in this one film. There's so many great films in the Showa era. I mean, there's 2 duds, really. Not when you call them, well, one I'd call a dud, but one not so much a dud. It's just, it's gained cult status because of being a dud, I guess. But anyways, I mean, most of them are great. Yeah. They all have things that you love about them, but this one, everything's great about it. So I mean, all 3 of us here highly recommend this film. Definitely check it out. Ruben was talking about seeing it on TV as a kid, and I know, Mark, you did too. I remember TNT's Monster Vision. Every time they did Monster Vision marathons, man, this movie was on there. Actually, their little intro video, which I've got on the Plex server, just a little intro from Monster Vision, has tons of footage from this movie.
That intro, that Monster Vision intro is a classic.
Oh man, I love it.
With the Blue Oyster Cult, and it's just awesome. It's good. An awesome intro,
This is one of the ones for me in my collection that I've got I mean, there's only two versions. You know, I mean, you got your traditional Japanese version and you've got the American version, but it's not one of those scenarios kind of like, you know, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster where you've got two different dubbings that are out there. This one's just one or the other, but there was multiple cases, I should say, in the VHS era, and this is one of those films where I hunt down every possible case for this because they had some of the best cases I thought was for this film right here. But anyways, great movie. Guys, check it out. We were going to discuss real quick what we're going to watch on what we're going to watch on the next one. So next month, of course, we're not going to do a Godzilla film. We'll jump back in March for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
March.
But next month, since several people have asked, we're going to go and tackle an American monster film. And it won't be a John Monster film. We're going to go far south. We're going to Antarctica with John Carpenter's The Thing next month. And we have a special guest next month as well. Sarge, or Adam Sadler, also known as Sarge from The Protest, who's actually fixing to go out on tour. They actually just heard the words today. They actually got a top 30 hit on the Billboard charts.
Yes, I saw that.
Which was really cool.
Good job, The Protest.
Dude, congrats to you guys again on another top charting hit, which is great for the new record. But Sarge will be joining us for The Thing. It's his all-time favorite horror film. And he told me when we first started this, because he did an episode with us, you know, way back in the beginning of for the main show, that he wanted to do two movies for Monster Movie Stompdown, and he wanted to do The Thing if we did it, which we're going to, and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. So we'll get Sarge back to back with the three of us.
Well,
for
I think
2 months.
if we ever do Creature from the Black Lagoon, he's got to be here.
Oh,
too.
dude, yeah, that is the guy.
Oh,
like we can sit here and debate that one.
I would be disappointed if we didn't hear from him.
No, you couldn't. Like for Creature from the Black Lagoon, Mark, he worked at Silver Springs in Florida, where some scenes were shot for that film.
Exactly, yeah.
And, of course, me being a fanatic of the Universal Monsters, especially Creature, I've been there, seen it, you know, where the cave, there's no real actual cave there, but when he dives down and he goes beneath that little ledge to go into his cave, I've been there. So, I mean, I love it. Sarge would stomp us when it comes to Creature, knowledge. He loves that movie. So next month, join us. We're going to tackle our first American monster movie. And to me, I think it's, as far as horror movies, monster movies go, it's hard to top John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes.
It was phenomenal. So we'll probably be talking about that one.
John Carpenter knew what he was doing with that one.
Oh, man.
That one, it goes up. I enjoy that one more than I enjoyed the original. And I'm a purist. You know, like, oh, you can't beat the original, but this one was very
stomped
good.
The original. I mean, it was cool seeing James Arness in the original one, and we'll talk about this on the next episode. But, dude, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot in the next episode. There's too many doors being opened and shut in the first one. Like, that's all that movie is doors opening and closing. So, but join us next month for that. We've got that coming up next month, and then, of course, in March, we will be tackling Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, the becoming of Godzilla's greatest adversary of all time, who we, of course, will see this year, actually twice. He's the main adversary in Godzilla Planet Eater that just came out on Netflix today, and then today's the 9th. We pre-recorded these episodes, and then he's the main bad guy for Godzilla King of the Monsters coming out May 31st this year as well, which is going to be good. Something else we're going to work on too, just so you guys know, listeners, we are working on a new format. For the show, we are going to be giving a rating for the movies and then try and reorganize a little bit something here to make this a little more pop and fun for you guys, because I know I've worked a lot in changing the main shows as we go and listen back and hear your all's comments, because you all do comment and send me messages, and I greatly appreciate that. We're going to work a few new things out for this one. One thing that we will be doing and we didn't do on this episode, but we'll be playing a song or trailer music or something for the movie as we come into the show. So that worked really well with the last two episodes, and people have liked that. So we've got some cool new things coming for the Monster Movie Stompdown that we hopefully you guys will like. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Mothra vs. Godzilla in 1964. Don't get it mixed with Godzilla vs. Mothra in 1992. We'll be on that probably next year. Good movie, but not as good as this one. Definitely check it out. Phenomenal movie. Again, this is Sludge.
And Mark.
And Ruben. And I'm just looking at that rock formation, and it does look like Skull Island.
Exactly. Told you.
That's awesome.
So cool. So, all right, guys. Thank you all. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Let them fight.
Don't act like a big shot, Tip. You just got the...
You have your fear, which might become reality. You have Godzilla, which is reality.